How does a fiancé respond when his bride invites her lover to the Bachelorette for closure and lets him stay until sunrise? What happens when the fiancé refuses a screaming match, gathers quiet proof, and serves documents in a bright lobby while a printer clicks and friends look away? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Isola Gray, and I told myself one last night with my old love was honest, not wrong. I said closure was adult. I said secrets break trust, so I would do it in the open. Bram, my fiancé, liked plans and quiet rooms. He asked for clean lines around X's. I said lines were cages for small hearts. I believed my own pitch because it made me look brave. Little signs stacked up at home. 2 mugs sat on opposite counters each morning like islands. A folder labeled Household appeared by the toaster. His phone flashed a reminder that read Downtown 2:45 p.m., and he dismissed it with one tap. At night, I heard a soft shredder hum behind the office door. Sometimes the guest bed looked touched at the edges, like a tide had moved there and back. I called it punishment and told myself I could handle it. At work, I said, grown couples do clear endings. HR asked for a quick word about optics. I nodded and smiled. I messaged Cass and wrote that the Bachelorette after midnight would be calm and sweet. He replied with a camera emoji. I decided the party would prove my point. I wanted applause more than quiet. I woke before sunrise and stood in the kitchen with my ring between my fingers. I told myself the circle was only metal, not a rule. I set it by the fruit bowl and lined up 2 mugs like a tiny stage. Bram came in with soft steps and placed his mug by the stove, mine by the bowl, the distance exact. He asked if I wanted tea. I said I wanted a calm day and honest air. He asked if I was ready to pick up the favors. I said favors were small and my plans were large. He nodded and poured water, and the nod felt like a lid he put on me. A new folder sat by the toaster with the neat label Household. I tapped the spine and called it a library. He said order helps in a busy week. I said charm helps more. He looked at the window like the sky had better company than me. His phone lit with a banner that said, Downtown 2:45 p.m. He dismissed it with one thumb. I asked if we had errands. He said he had a personal stop. I told him secrets make rot. He said privacy lives inside love. I said privacy sounded like a lock. I pulled out plates and spoke about closure like it was a wine pairing. I said inviting Cass after midnight would be adult and clean, like washing a glass and putting it back. Bram asked if we could set a boundary instead. I said boundaries were for people who fear breath. He asked for a simple no. I said I had already told Cass it would be a goodbye, not a drama. I called that truth. In my head, I called it strategy. He opened his laptop at the table. A spreadsheet showed tiny boxes with initials and dates. When I stepped closer, he minimized the window. I asked if he was counting my mistakes. He said he was tracking household items. I said tracking was a leash word. He said lists prevent pain. I said applause prevents pain. He did not answer. He closed the lid and set it square with the table edge like a person who organizes weather. I walked to the bedroom and tried on the dress for the Bachelorette pre-dinner. The fabric hugged me in a way that made me feel like a promise. I sent a photo to my sister Prue and wrote that I looked like a celebration. She replied that celebrations do not need fire alarms. I scrolled past and messaged Cass that the after-hours plan was sweet and simple. He replied with a camera emoji and a song link. I felt a small rise in my chest and named it nostalgia, not danger. Back in the kitchen, the mugs stood in their far places. I took a picture of them for my story and added a caption about honesty being air. I deleted it because it sounded like a sermon. I said out loud that closure proves strength. Bram asked if we could skip all this and choose quiet. I said quiet was the language of people who do not win rooms. He reminded me we were not a room. I said I was still a person who needs an audience. I moved to the office nook to print a list for the night. The room held a faint smell of printer toner, like the ghost of a long shift. I pressed power. The printer woke, hummed, and fed out a single blank page. I laughed and called it a metaphor. I opened the top drawer for paper. It slid half an inch and met a lock with a small, smug click. I called toward the kitchen and asked if he had changed the drawer. He said he was organizing, so nothing got lost in the week. I said organizing was just hiding in a nicer coat. He said we could talk later if I wanted a calm talk. I said later was a stall used by people who do not like truth. Under the blue taxes folder, I saw a tiny USB stick taped to the wood with white tape. Today's date was written on it in neat numbers. I tapped it with a fingernail and left it taped. I wanted him to know I saw his little treasures. I wanted him to know my stories were bigger than his files. My mother, Deirdre, called and asked if we were excited. I said we were intense, which means alive. She told me to be gentle. I said gentleness is a luxury when you are building something. She asked if Bram liked the plan. I said he liked to say no and call it care. She said no is sometimes love. I said love is sometimes yes. We ended with a soft goodbye that felt like a ribbon tied too tight. Bram asked if I had told Cass not to come. I said I told him to come and leave with grace. He asked why I needed him there at all. I said because history deserves a clean edge. He said edges cut. I said cuts let light in. He sighed into his sleeve like a man smelling rain. I packed a small tote with lip balm, safety pins, and the tiny card with the lines I planned to say about grown love. I paused by the guest room. The bedspread had a slight fold at the edge, like someone had sat there, or like a hand had pressed and lifted. I told myself it was laundry. I told myself thinking otherwise would be paranoia, and paranoia was for smaller people than me. On the wall planner, a date wore a red circle with no caption. A sticky note below it said, "Bring forms." I peeled the corner up and pressed it smooth again. I walked back to the kitchen and found Bram placing the household folder a perfect inch from the toaster. I nudged it left and asked if that made the world fall. He said alignment helped. I said courage helps. He asked for one promise, no private corners with Cass. I said the whole room was a corner, when you are honest. He asked for a second promise. Come home by 1. I said rules turn brides into employees. He said mornings still happen. I said mornings love me. He lifted his bag. On his keyring, a small new key glinted, not fancy, just new. I asked what door it owned. He said it was new. I said secrecy is not character. He said readiness is care. He put his phone on the dresser for a moment. A text preview flashed and vanished. The contact name showed only a lock emoji. I asked if he was getting cute with nicknames. He said it was work. I told myself it was a code for a vendor. I told myself it did not matter because my story would win. He went to the office nook. The door moved toward the frame. I stood in the doorway of the kitchen and watched the angle narrow. I sent Prue a message that said the night would be brave and clean. She replied that brave without kind becomes mean. I let it sit. I posted a private story for close friends that said, transparency is the truest gift. A few hearts popped. One friend wrote to ask if Bram agreed. I typed that he understood growth and did not press send. I deleted the draft and filmed the skyline from the balcony instead. I crossed the hall to grab my jacket. The apartment felt like a stage before the curtain goes up. The kettle cooled. The mugs waited. The household folder kept its little square of authority. I looked at my ring on the counter and told myself symbols answer to me, not the other way around. The co-working hub smelled like coffee and warm plastic. I set my tote under the front desk and turned on the tablet. I told the morning members that the printers were ready and the rooms were on time. A designer asked if the party tonight was big. I said it was mine and that I knew how to keep the room happy. He said rooms like rules. I said rooms like sparkle. He smiled in a way that was not a smile and rolled away. I opened my private story and typed a line about grown love and honest endings. I wrote that clear goodbyes keep hearts clean. I added a photo of my wrist with a paper wristband from last week and tagged it practice. A few hearts popped. A member I barely knew stopped at the counter and asked if I was nervous. I said, nerves are for people who hide. She nodded and took a mint. I felt taller. At 9, Renee, my manager, pinged me and asked if I could stop by the glass room later for a quick word. I told her after lunch was best. She sent a thumbs up. I minimized the chat and decided I would not let policy steal my day. I sent Cass a message that asked if his late set still worked. He replied that he would be there at 12:30 and that the city would be soft by then. He added a small star. I felt that small lift in my chest again and called it art, not risk. 2 founders checked in and asked about guest passes. I printed badges and made light talk. The office printer worked without a cough. It fed each badge like a well-trained pet. I felt annoyed at the machine in our apartment that chose drama for every page. I told myself Bram loved difficult tools because they made him feel like a hero. I checked our home cloud from the front desk to pull a packing list. A small banner flashed in the corner. File uploaded successfully. The name looked like a code. I clicked away fast. In my personal drive, 2 new folders sat at the top, Archive A and Archive B. They were too clean. I imagined them filling with screenshots of my story posts, my ring on the counter, my lines about closure. I closed the tab and breathed through my nose. I told myself I could always talk louder than paper. A member came to ask for a stapler and then asked if Bram worked with numbers. I said he did logistics and liked tidy lines. The member said tidy lines keep trucks on time. I said they can also trap. He thanked me for the stapler and walked off. I tasted my words and liked them. They sounded like a shield dressed up as a TED talk. Around 10, my phone lit with a call from private. I let it buzz until it died. A second later, a text from Bram arrived. He asked if I needed help with the cake pickup. I typed that I had a full plate and he should focus on his lists. He sent a short, okay. The short okay put weight on my tongue. I swallowed and posted a lobby mirror selfie with a caption that said, "Brave brides do not hide from the past." A co-worker from events reacted with a cautious smile. Another sent no reaction at all. A courier dropped off a thin package for Renee. I signed and stacked it. The sunlight on the lobby floor made easy squares. I walked through one square and imagined it as a stage mark. A community member joked that he saw me everywhere this week. I said I was a brand and brands show up. He laughed in a way that said, I was kidding and not kidding. Near noon, Renee waved me into the glass room. The walls made everything look cleaner. She asked if home was steady. I said yes, and that Bram was practical. She said the hub needed staff to keep nightlife tags separate from work channels. I said modern life blends. She said donors and clients see our names even when we think they do not. I said the party was private. She said private becomes public in one tap. She asked me to be thoughtful. I said of course. While I sat there, an invite popped onto my screen from her. Follow up. I opened the preview and closed it. I thanked her for caring. She thanked me for listening. We left it tidy. Back at the desk, Prue texted and asked if I was building a fire or a door. I said doors are good and fires are pretty. She said doors can melt if you build them from sugar. I muted the thread and decided my sister liked moral puzzles too much for a weekday. A vendor asked if we needed more wristbands. I said we were covered. He asked if the Bachelorette theme was set. I said the theme was air and light and trust. He said themes like that make people film. I said filming helps memory. He lifted his eyebrows and wheeled his cart away. I took a break and changed into a nicer top in the restroom. The mirror was honest but kind. I tested my smile. It looked like power in person and kindness in photos. That balance always worked for me. When I came back to the desk, 2 bridesmaids had sent a group picture to our chat. They asked if Cass was really stopping by. I wrote that he might say hello after midnight. One sent a string of hearts. Another wrote that Bram would be fine if I had warned him. I typed that I had been clear and hit send before I could think. The afternoon grew noisy in a soft way. A podcaster tested mics in the corner. A designer argued with her client about a banner color. I checked the event account for 1 second and saw that Cass had posted a story showing a camera bag and a finger drawing a heart on a foggy window. He tagged no one. He tagged a location near our club. I felt sudden heat and called it excitement. I said to myself that honesty had a right to be seen. Bram texted again to say he would be near his phone if I needed a ride at 1. I typed that the girls had it planned. He wrote that he hoped I felt safe. I stared at the words and hoped they would feel like a leash so I could be angry. They did not. They felt like care. I set the phone face down and decided care would not win tonight's story. Another cloud pop-up blinked. File uploaded successfully. I dragged the booking window over it like a curtain. My fingers shook for a second. I hid the shake by tightening the strap on my tote. A member asked for envelopes. I handed them over and remembered the unsealed one in our outbox tray at home. I wondered if he had sealed it. I told myself paper does not decide anything. Close to 4, a coworker sent a link in the internal chat. It was a pre-party graphic from the club page. My handle sat under the banner with glitter font. The caption said last night before forever. I felt the room tilt. A bridesmaid pinged the group chat with a line of scream emojis. I wrote that it was cute marketing. Prue texted me in a separate thread and asked if I understood what I had built. I ignored the message. I checked the lobby camera angle and pictured the roses I would hold tomorrow for photos with Bram. I told myself I was the director of both nights and that directors can hold 2 truths. My phone buzzed again with private. I watched the screen until it stopped. I said out loud that spam was noisy this week. A member looked up and pretended not to hear me speaking to no one. At 5, Renee passed by the desk and asked if I had a minute before I left for hair. I said yes and stood. At that exact second, my phone lit with another ping from the club page. The new story showed Cass's camera and a shadow of a woman raising a glass. My handle glowed under it. The bright square pulsed like a small siren. Renee gestured toward the glass room with a calm hand. The printer in the mail area spooled labels. The hum felt like a drum under my feet. The club felt like a heartbeat with lights. The ceiling wore a net of tiny bulbs, and the booth pulsed a slow wave that made people sway without trying. My bridesmaids gathered me into a circle and lifted glasses. Someone shouted that this was my last free night. I said the word free did not scare me. The floor answered with a cheer. I told myself I could hold a room like a lantern and that no one would get burned if I kept the light steady. We took a table close to the DJ rail. The girls set a crown on my head and said it was cute, not serious. I said cuteness works better than rules. The server smiled and said the first round was on the house. I told my friends the house understood brand value. A cousin filmed a slow pan of the table. I did a small tilt of my head that always photographs well. The screen showed my face, then my bare left hand, then the glitter on the crown. I felt taller. Bram texted at 10:58 and asked if I needed a ride home at 1. I typed that we had a car plan already. He wrote that he wanted me safe. I set the phone face down and told myself care can be a leash. I wanted the night to walk on its own feet. Cass messaged at 12:11 that traffic had broken, that he would be at the back door soon. I read it, put the phone away, and stood to check my smile in the bar mirror. A bridesmaid said my lipstick looked brave. I said, bravery is a color. The DJ slid into a track from the year I first met Cass. Memory touched the room and made it soft. I felt the old lift in my chest and named it history so it could feel clean. At 12:31, Cass stepped through the staff door with his camera bag slung across his shoulder. He moved like a person who expects a lens to find him. He said with his eyes that I looked exactly like his favorite version of me. I said with my posture that the story belonged to me. The girls whooped. A co-worker from the hub whispered to a friend and pretended not to stare. Cass raised his phone and filmed the table. He gestured at my crown and asked if the city could handle this level of joy. I said the city should try. A server set sparklers into a dessert slate, and the room cheered for sparks. The camera flash cracked from 3 different angles. I told myself flashes are confetti, not evidence. The thought tasted sweet and thin. We walked to the smoking patio for air. The metal door latch clicked with that small official sound, the kind that says a moment has a frame. Cass stood near the heater and asked if Bram liked crowds. I said Bram liked plans. He said plans do not dance. I said I do. A person beside us opened a recording app. The faint beep sounded like a tiny gate locking behind me. I felt it and let it sit. The night wanted witnesses. I wanted them too. Back inside, the chant for a toast rose from our table and rolled across the room. The DJ pointed at me. I lifted a glass and thanked everyone for loving me in the light. I said, grown love is honest and says goodbye with open eyes. I said, closure keeps promises clean. People clapped because cadence makes sentences feel right even when they are wrong. I heard my own voice bounce off the wall and return to me with shine added. That feedback loop felt like approval. I needed it for fuel. Cass put an arm wide, not touching, but near enough that the lens could choose the story it wanted. The crowd read the picture and liked it. A woman near the rail muttered to her friend and lifted her phone anyway. The DJ cut the bass and let the treble tick like ice in a glass. Cass said he had one frame that would make the night. I asked which. He said the one where I look at him like he was a past I had mastered. I laughed into the mic and said I was not afraid of my past. The room answered with a soft roar that feels like permission. At the bar, my phone lit with a banner from our shared calendar. Meeting, personal. The words looked plain and heavy at once. I told myself Bram had scheduled something dull, like storage or a haircut. I pushed the thought away and smiled at the bartender like a person who never worries. The elevator down the hall chimed. The patio door clicked again. The small metals kept making stamps. After one, the girls wanted fresh air. We walked out to the street and then toward the beach promenade where the night thins into morning. Cass followed with his camera bag and said the city was softer than he expected. I said it always is after midnight. A cyclist coasted past and glanced at our little parade. He lifted his phone and filmed because everyone films now. I told myself public is neutral. I told myself sunrise belongs to whoever arrives first. We reached the rail. The water lay like a dark sheet. Street lights drew long lines on the ground. Cass asked if he could get one last frame before I became, in his words, forever. I said, frames do not control people. People control frames. He smiled in a way that said I had proved his point. He took my hand for the composition and asked me to look out, not at him. I held my body like a statue that breathes. I told myself this was art, not cruelty. My phone buzzed again. Bram asked if I needed water and if I had a ride. He added a simple line about the week being long. The words sat there like a hand held out through glass. I left them unread because my story needed to finish building its shape. I said to the girls that grown love trusts this scene. They said I should say thank you to the city for the soft air. I said thank you out loud. The cyclist filmed a second time, slower. Cass asked a bridesmaid to take a group photo. He adjusted my shoulder and told me to breathe like the sea. I breathed. Someone behind us cheered at nothing, the way people do when night feels generous. I told myself generosity forgives edits. I told myself Bram would understand the grammar of closure once I explained it in morning words. We walked back toward the club, because the girls wanted one more song before we broke apart. The streetlights made small pools of light on the sidewalk. I stepped from pool to pool like a game. Cass kept close enough for a lens, but not close enough for a rule. The balance turned my spine long and made me feel taller than my shoes. Inside, the DJ shouted my name into the mic and said the bride had to bless the floor one last time. I lifted both hands and turned slowly. Phones rose like a field of flowers. Cass lifted his camera once more and said this was the frame. I felt the room lean forward. I gave it my best face and let the night draw itself around me. The family restaurant smelled like butter and garlic. A long table sat under a wall of framed boats. Deirdre waved me toward the middle and said the light was best there. I said any seat worked. Prue took the chair to my left and kept her phone face down like a warning. Bram arrived with his parents and chose the far end by the window. He greeted the table with quiet words and a small nod for me. I told myself the nod was a performance, not care. I told myself I would steer the room. Menus rose like little shields. A cousin asked if the sunrise clip was real. I said angles lie and the moment had context. Moira, his mother, folded her napkin into a clean bar and placed it on her lap. She asked if Bram had agreed to my plan. I said the plan was honest closure and I had been transparent. Clive, his father, asked if the wedding date had moved. I said the date stood. He looked at Bram, then back at his water, as if to stamp the answer. The server brought bread and oil. I broke a piece and started a speech about trust. I said grown love allows a clean goodbye. Deirdre told me to drink water. I said water would not fix other people's fear. Prue asked if I had told the whole truth, or only the parts that made me look brave. I said the truth was simple. I invited Cass after midnight, and we talked and said thank you to the past. Moira asked if I could hear how that landed on the man I planned to marry. I said people survive landing. Across plates, Bram thanked the server for extra napkins. His tone was even. That tone always worked on me like sand under skin. He moved a basket toward his mother, and then toward me, without looking too long. When he reached for his keys to open a soda, a small new key on his ring flashed. Not fancy, just new. I asked what door it owned. He said it was new. I said secrets wear metal. He said readiness wears metal. The table stayed quiet in that polite way that cuts. Main dishes arrived. I kept talking about playlists and flowers, because lists make rooms feel normal. Bram asked the server to refill his mother's tea. He passed a side dish to his father. He did not look at me. I told myself not looking was a kind of show. Prue asked if I had read the comments under the sunrise clip with Cass. I said comments were noise. She said some noise is signal. I said signal is what I say it is. A board game night poster hung by the kitchen pass. The colors looked cheerful and false. A cousin asked if Cass had stayed until morning. I said we walked by the water and said goodbye. The cousin raised eyebrows but said nothing more. Deirdre told me quiet can be mercy. I said quiet often hides control. Moira asked softly if I had given Bram a choice. I said I had told him, and telling is respect. Clive asked if telling and asking felt different to me. I changed the subject to cake flavors. We settled the bill and walked to the park 2 blocks away. The evening light turned the swings into gold lines. Joel, my nephew, ran ahead and begged for a push. I said yes and set my hands on the chain. He moved forward and back, forward and back. Without turning, he asked if Uncle Bram was sad because Auntie chose another man for her last night before the wedding. His voice was small and plain. The swing slowed, as if the question had weight. I felt the heat rise to my face, then drain. I said grown-ups make stories so they can learn. He asked if learning always hurts one person more. I said sometimes it hurts a little before it helps. Bram stepped forward, tied Joel's loose shoelace with steady hands, and told him there might be ice cream later if the adults needed time. Bram did not say my name. He did not look at me. The space between us felt like glass. Prue stood beside me and watched the sky. She said I could still choose to be kind. I said I had been kind by not lying. She said I had been loud. I said, loud is not wrong. Deirdre rubbed my arm and told me to rest before the week. I said, rest is for people who follow smaller stories. She looked at my eyes and went quiet in that mother way that builds a wall without raising a stone. We walked back to the apartment because Deirdre had left a scarf there last week. The hallway smelled like lemon and dust. Inside, 2 mugs sat in their assigned places, mine near the fruit bowl, his by the stove. I said, distance is a drama trick. Bram said distance keeps rooms calm. I said, calm is not life. He said life needs respect. I said respect becomes a cage when it blocks breath. He said nothing. On the balcony, 2 chairs faced the street, but 1 cushion was missing. I filmed the skyline and told myself light helps truth. Inside, I went to the office nook to print a coupon I had saved for Joel. The tray was empty, but the faint smell of printer toner clung to the air as if the machine had worked a solo shift. I pulled the top drawer. It slid half an inch and met the lock with a precise click. I called toward the kitchen and asked if the drawer was new. He said he was organizing, so nothing got lost. I said, organizing is hiding with better labels. He did not respond. On the console by the door, an unsealed envelope lay in the outbox tray. I flipped it. The front showed only my name in clean letters. No stamp. I put it back face down. I told myself paper only wins when people clap for it. I told myself I could outtalk any letter. Deirdre found her scarf and thanked us. She asked if Sunday was still on. I said yes because family helps optics. Prue said optics do not replace repair. I said repair was coming. I would write a post. Prue said posts are not apologies. I said she was being dramatic for a person who hates drama. She said she hated harm. She refused to take sides when Deirdre tried to smooth. She said she would not defend me, and she would not attack me. She said she would stand with the future. That sentence annoyed me because it sounded good. Moira stood near the door and said she preferred email for updates. I said email felt cold. She said cold beats cruel. Clive asked if the date remained, yes or no. I said yes. He said calendars prefer truth to promises. Bram placed his keys in the bowl. The new key flashed once and went still. They left with soft steps. The apartment exhaled. The TV ran low to break the quiet. Bram hung his jacket on the chair. A thin note of toner rose from the fabric like a ghost. I told myself he had printed budgets just to rattle me. I decided I would not rattle. I wrote a caption about love being brave in public and learning out loud. Comments arrived fast. A cousin wrote that I was strong. A co-worker sent eyes. I stood on the balcony again and watched the street. A car idled and then rolled away. The city looked like a soft screen pressed against glass. I told myself I still owned the narrative if I kept my chin up. My phone buzzed in my hand. The screen showed a call from an unknown number. I let it ring because I wanted to prove I was not afraid of shadows. In the hallway, steps came near and paused outside our door, as if a listener waited for a scene. The pause held, then drifted away. I turned the ring on the counter so it faced the ceiling. I said to myself that symbols answer to me. I said good stories end with applause, not paper. The printer in the office gave a small cough and fell silent again, like a throat that had said enough for one day. Morning tried to look normal, so I made it busier. I went to the supermarket with a list I did not need, because holding paper feels like control. A neighbor from our floor stood by the apples, checked her phone, looked at me 1 second too long, then turned to the pears like fruit had secrets. I told myself she was nosy, not worried. At checkout, the cashier asked if the wedding was still on. I said absolutely, and I added that people confuse honesty with scandal. She said the city likes both. My phone lit with a missed call labeled private. I let it fade and said out loud that spam never sleeps. The cashier smiled like she had heard that line before. Back home, 3 slim binders waited on the shelf with perfect spines. Home, auto, bank. I laughed and asked if we were starting a museum. Bram said sorting helped before a heavy week. I said heavy weeks need dancing, not labels. He placed my mug near the fruit bowl and his by the stove, the distance exact, as if the counter were a map he alone could read. On the wall planner, a date wore a red circle with no caption. Under it, a sticky note said, "Bring forms." I lifted the corner, then pressed it flat, then lifted it again. The paper made a tiny sound like a wing. In the office nook, the printer woke by itself and fed a single blank page onto the tray. The faint smell of toner folded into the air. I pulled the top drawer for paper. It slid half an inch and met the lock with a clean click. I called toward the kitchen and asked if he had changed the drawers again. He said he was organizing, so nothing got lost. I said organizing is hiding for people who like labels more than love. He said nothing, which bothered me more than any answer would have. His laptop gleamed with neat tabs arranged like a choir. Storage options, delivery tracking, notary near me. On the calendar, a small block read, "Downtown 9:20 a.m. I asked if something fun was happening. He said he had personal errands. I said secrets are still secrets even when they wear the word personal. He adjusted the binders by a millimeter and thanked me for picking up groceries like we had discussed it. I decided not to ask what we had discussed because I did not want to lose the feeling that I drove the car. I met Prue for coffee to collect approval I could hold in my pocket. She asked if I had given a plain apology yet. I said I had explained context because the sunrise clip lacked it. She said context without remorse is a mask. I told her masks protect, which is a kind of love. She drank water and said love without care is performance. I changed the subject to songs for the reception playlist. She said songs do not fix choices. I said songs build moods, and moods change minds. She said minds are not the problem. At the gym locker room, I checked my dress in bright, punishing light. A woman from our block said she hoped I was okay. I said I was great and that honesty had a cost, but also a yield. She showed her friend a private group thread with the sunrise clip. They kept their voices careful and used my name in low tones. I told myself they were jealous of a woman who can hold a room. I told myself jealousy always sounds like a whisper. In the parking garage, the air was a low drum. Bram stood at the trunk with a clipboard. He asked for the spare key fob and said he was doing inventory because movement was coming. I said inventory tasted like iron. He said lists help during stress. I told him we were not a warehouse. He wrote down the fob number under a line that read statement at the top. Our car faced the street instead of the wall. I asked if he planned a quick exit. He said he liked to be ready. I said ready sounds like running. He said ready sounds like care. I put the fob in his hand, and he thanked me like a person thanks a clerk. The thank you sat between us like a receipt. Upstairs, I opened the outbox tray by the door. The unsealed envelope from yesterday still lay there, face down. I did not flip it. I told myself paper only wins if a crowd claps. In the kitchen, he moved the binders again, microscopic degrees, and looked at the wall planner as if it were a map of a secret country. I said he loved paper more than people. He said paper keeps people from being hurt twice. I said poetry does that better. He said poems do not sign anything. The sentence stung because it sounded plain and true, and plain truths always scratch. I drafted a caption about learning out loud and posted a photo of my hand on the balcony rail. The printer clicked again and produced another blank page, as if making a point in a quiet argument. Comments started. A cousin wrote that I was brave. A coworker wrote to ask if Bram was okay. I liked brave and left the question sitting, unread and heavy. Late afternoon slid over the window like slow water. Bram set his keys in the bowl. The new small key flashed and went quiet. He hung his jacket on the chair. A thin note of toner lifted from the fabric. I said he was performing paperwork to rattle me. He said he was keeping track, and he said it without heat. He opened his phone. For a second, I saw a contact saved with only a lock emoji. A cloud banner blinked on the tablet. File uploaded successfully. I closed the cover, as if I could close the event itself. On the balcony, the street noise made a soft net. He handed me my mug and kept his eyes on the crosswalk. I said we could try counseling and do a joint post with kind words. He said he had meetings already. I asked what kind. He said personal. I said mystery is childish. He said clarity was coming. I said suspense hurts. He said we were almost through suspense. The way he said through made me feel like he had picked a door, and I had not seen it open. I told him we should tell his parents that everything was fine. He said he would not run PR for me. I said then he should forgive me out loud. He said forgiveness and plans are not the same. I said plans are just costumes for punishment. He said plans are ways to keep shouting from becoming harm. I told him he liked structure more than hearts. He said structure keeps hearts from being cut again. The words were awful because they did not shout, and quiet words can be so heavy. He finished his tea. The hall elevator dinged. Steps came near and paused outside our door like a listener waiting for evidence. We said nothing. The steps moved on. The wall planner's red circle glowed like a small sun in the kitchen lamplight. My phone buzzed with another private call and then went dark. He set his empty mug on the rail with care, as if cups could bruise. He looked at the street and said he would handle things properly. The word landed like a tool on a table. Simple, heavy, used for building, not for show. I laughed too bright and asked if properly meant more lists and tidy piles. He said properly meant properly. He thanked me for returning the spare fob and said the car keys would stay separate for now. I said separate sounded like punishment. He said separate sounded like care. I stared at the binders through the glass. I stared at the sticky that said bring forms. I told myself paper is only paper. I told myself tomorrow would bend if I told it to bend. He picked up his keys, and the small new key chimed against the ring once, then went still. I chose the courthouse lobby because marble makes mistakes look small. I carried roses and a small card with neat lines. The glass doors sighed when I pushed them. Security asked my name, and I said it in a steady voice that sounded like a recording. The badge printer clicked and fed labels in a tight rhythm. People moved between the turnstiles like a slow stream. I told myself I would ask for 2 minutes, speak an apology in plain words, and reset the week before the invitations went out. Bram stepped out of the elevator with steady shoulders. He walked toward the information desk with a man in a dark blazer. The guard looked from me to them and back again. The man asked me to confirm my full name. I said it, letter by letter. He said he had documents to deliver. I said a public scene was not necessary. He said service would be complete when the papers touched my hand. The printer spooled another strip. A badge curled forward like a small tongue. I lifted the roses a little because I wanted a shield. The man held out a slim envelope and asked me to take it. I took it. The paper was thin, but heavy with what it meant. Through the clear window, I saw my name cut clean. No blur, no mercy. Bram thanked the guard and the server for their time. He said he would keep communication to email only. He said there was an inventory schedule and times I could choose for pickup of personal items. He said the apartment would be his temporary residence during the process. He said there would be no hallway talks and no late-night calls. I asked if we could speak alone. He said the process would speak now. I said the Bachelorette was a test, not betrayal. He said tests still land on real people. His voice stayed even, like a level pressed against a wall. A donor from the hub walked in with a tote and stopped when she saw us. She set her mouth neutral and drifted sideways to stare at a plant. I felt heat gather under my collarbone and tried to hold my chin like a handle. I slid a finger under the flap and opened the top sheet. The words were simple and cold. A petition to dissolve the marriage. temporary financial and possession orders, a proposed schedule for access to shared items, a line about returning a spare fob, a line about exclusive use of the apartment during the process, a note that all contact would move to a single email thread, a first review date, a sentence asking for respectful conduct in public spaces. I read my name again, the last name I had not yet taken, and it sat on the page like a brick. Bram said he wished me health and calm. He said he would follow the plan and hoped I would too. He told the server that his side would keep records clean. He turned one pace toward the elevators and waited with his hands at his sides. His ring was gone. His posture looked like a person standing for a photo where he does not need to smile. I said I could fix the optics. I said I had a caption ready that would explain context. He said optics are not repair. He said people deserve quiet, not edits. The badge printer clicked again and again, steady as a metronome. Somewhere above us, an elevator bell chimed. A stroller squeaked across the marble. A stranger near the directory pretended to read and took a slow breath like a witness practicing forgetting. The man in the blazer asked me to confirm receipt. I nodded. He said service was complete. He asked me to check the second page for contact instructions. I looked down and saw the address to write to if I had questions. I saw the words, by appointment only. I saw a date circled in the margin in tidy ink that was not mine. The circle looked like a mouth that would not open for me. I told Bram I had been honest. He said I had been loud. I said I had warned him. He said warning is not consent. I said I wanted to say sorry in the right way. He said the right way is to stop. He did not raise his voice. He did not move towards me. He stood there and let the lobby do the noise for him. The printer, the bell, the scanner beep, shoes on stone. A coworker from my floor pushed through the turnstile with a coffee. She saw the roses, then the envelope, then my face. She studied the lid of her cup like it had become difficult. The guard asked if I needed a chair. I said I was fine and stayed standing. The roses slid a little. Petals tipped and fell, one by one, small and bright against the pale floor. Bram pressed the elevator button. The doors opened. He stepped inside and faced forward. He did not look back. He said he would send the email with times by evening. He said he hoped I would choose one. He said he would keep to the plan. I stood there with the envelope and the card and the flowers that now felt silly in my arms. The doors closed with a soft slide. The lobby printer clicked again, quick and exact. The guard turned a page on his clipboard. The donor lifted her tote higher and walked to the exit. A petal caught a draft and skated toward the information sign, then stopped. I held the envelope with both hands until my fingers left small marks on the edge. The marble under my shoes felt very flat. I thought of the red circle on the wall planner, the sticky note that said bring forms, the binders, the spare fob number written under statement. All the small lines had led here. I had called them paper. They had been a road. I tucked the card with my practiced lines into my pocket. It felt thin and wrong now. The envelope felt correct in a way that hurt. The printer spooled another badge. The sound set the beat for the rest of my day. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.